Have you ever wondered if animals truly remember the humans who saved them? What if I told you that the largest creature in the ocean carried a memory for 2 entire years, just to return and share the most precious gift imaginable? I'm about to share something that happened to me on a grey morning that started like any other, but ended with me questioning everything I thought I knew about the intelligence of these magnificent giants. That day, I stood on the beach watching a 40-ton humpback whale dying in the sand, her eye looking directly into mine. What would you do in that moment? Would you walk away knowing the odds were impossible? Or would you fight against nature itself, even when every logical bone in your body screamed that it was hopeless? I made a choice that morning, and 2 years later, that choice came back to find me in a way that still makes my hands shake when I talk about it. The connection between humans and whales goes deeper than most people realize. These creatures possess brains with specialized cells that scientists believe are responsible for empathy, social bonding, and yes, memory. But can a whale really remember a face? Can she hold on to a moment of kindness through thousands of miles of ocean travel, through seasons changing, through storms and calms? What you're about to hear challenged everything I thought possible. It's about the morning I helped save a life and the afternoon 2 years later when that life came back with something that made grown fishermen cry. This isn't just about a whale. It's about the invisible threads that connect all living beings and what happens when we choose compassion over convenience. Stay with me, because the moment that whale's eye met mine again, after all that time, with her calf swimming beside her, I understood something profound about the ocean, about memory, and about why some moments are meant to change us forever. My name is Marcus, and I've spent 33 years working the waters off the Pacific coast. I've seen things out there that most people only watch in documentaries. Pods of orcas hunting in perfect coordination, great white sharks breaching like missiles, dolphins playing in the wake of my boat at sunset. The ocean has been my office, my church, and my teacher. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened on October 14th, and then again exactly 2 years later. I need you to understand something about fishermen. We're practical people. We deal in tides and weather patterns, in net weights and market prices. We don't have time for sentimentality when we're hauling in a catch before a storm hits. But we also carry a deep respect for the ocean and everything in it. There's an unspoken rule among us. You don't turn your back on a creature in distress, even if helping means losing a day's work, even if it seems impossible. That October morning started at 4:47 a.m., like most of my mornings. Coffee so strong it could wake the dead, the familiar rumble of my boat's engine, the smell of salt and diesel mixing in the pre-dawn air. My crew, Tony, Miguel, and young Devon, who just joined us that season, were running through our usual routine. We had no idea that by 9 a.m. we'd be part of something that would ripple through our small fishing community and change how we saw the creatures we share these waters with. The call came over the radio from the harbor master. A humpback whale, female, approximately 40 feet long, had beached herself during high tide. She was 3 miles up the coast, and with low tide approaching, her situation was becoming critical. Several people had already gathered, but they needed experienced hands, people who understood the ocean's rhythms and had equipment that could actually help. The harbour master's voice was grim. He'd seen beached whales before. They rarely ended well. I looked at my crew, saw the same thought crossing their faces. We had a job to do, nets to run, quotas to meet. But there was no discussion, no debate. Miguel was already turning the boat north before I even gave the order. Because that's what you do. That's who we are. And as our boat cut through the morning fog toward that beach, none of us could have imagined that this wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of something that would teach us that the ocean remembers, and so do its greatest inhabitants. The beach came into view through the lifting fog. and my stomach dropped. I've seen beached whales twice before in my career, and both times they died despite everyone's best efforts. The sheer mass of these animals works against them on land. Their own weight crushes their internal organs, and even if you get them back to water, the damage is often fatal. But nothing prepared me for the sight of her lying there, this magnificent humpback whale, her dark body contrasting sharply against the pale sand. She was on her left side, her pectoral fin stretched out awkwardly, her tail still partially in the receding water. Around her, maybe 20 people had gathered, locals, tourists, a few volunteers from the Marine Rescue Center that was still 40 minutes away. They'd been pouring buckets of water over her, trying to keep her skin moist. But I could see the desperation in their movements. They knew, like I knew, that time was the enemy here, and we were losing. As we beached our boat and jumped onto the sand, I got my first good look at her eye. It's something I'll never forget. Whales have eyes positioned on the sides of their heads, and hers was facing up toward the sky. But as I approached, that eye moved, tracking me. There was intelligence there, unmistakable and profound, and something else, fear, yes, but also what I can only describe as a plea. She knew she was dying, and somehow she was asking for help. Tony grabbed my arm. "Marcus, her breathing is labored. Look at her." Blowhole. He was right. Each breath was coming with visible effort, and the time between breaths was stretching longer. Miguel was already on his phone, calling every boat owner he knew, asking them to bring towels, sheets, anything we could use to keep her wet. Devon stood frozen, staring at the whale with wide eyes. "I've never seen anything this big up close," he whispered. She's incredible." The Marine Rescue Coordinator, Sarah, arrived in her pickup truck, throwing up sand as she skidded to a stop. She was a woman in her 50s who dedicated her entire adult life to marine mammals, and even she looked shaken. "We need to assess her condition first," she said, moving quickly to examine the whale. "Check for injuries, disorientation signs, any indication of why she beached." But even as she spoke, we all knew the assessment didn't matter if we couldn't get her back in the water, and the tide was still going out. I knelt in the sand near her head, close enough to hear the wet, labored sound of her breathing through the blowhole. "We're going to help you," I whispered, feeling foolish but unable to stay silent. "Just hold on." Her eye moved again, fixing on me, and I felt a jolt run through my chest. In that moment, I wasn't looking at an animal. I was looking at a being, conscious and aware, fighting for her life, and somehow understanding that we were her only chance. The next hour was chaos, orchestrated by desperation. More boats arrived. Someone brought a fire truck, thinking the hose might help keep her wet. We worked in teams, some keeping her skin moist, others digging trenches around her body to reduce pressure points. Sarah examined her thoroughly and found no major injuries, no obvious illness. "She's healthy," Sarah announced, which somehow made it worse. This whale hadn't beached because she was sick or injured. She'd made a mistake, possibly chasing prey too close to shore, and now that mistake was killing her. The plan formed through shouted conversations and quick decisions. We had about 2 hours until the next high tide. If we could keep her alive that long, we might be able to use the incoming water and our boats to guide her back to deeper water. It was a long shot. Most beached whales this size don't survive the stress, even if you get them back to the ocean. Their organs get damaged, their muscles fail, or they simply beach themselves again, disoriented and exhausted. But we didn't have another option. So we worked. 14 boats eventually formed a semicircle in the water, waiting. On the beach, 37 people rotated in shifts, pouring water, adjusting the towels and sheets draped over her massive body, talking to her, encouraging her. It sounds crazy, but everyone did it. We talked to that whale like she could understand, like our words were lifelines we were throwing her. Stay strong, we've got you, just a little longer. I stayed near her head the entire time, taking my turns with the water. Buckets, but always returning to that spot where I could see her eye, and she watched me. Through all of it, whenever I was close, that eye would find me and hold. I've never felt so responsible for another living creature's survival. The weight of it pressed on my chest harder than any net full of fish I'd ever hauled. This wasn't just about saving a whale. It had become personal, a promise made in that first moment when our eyes met. A promise I was terrified I couldn't keep. The tide turned at 11:43 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my watch obsessively, watching the second-hand crawl while simultaneously praying it would speed up and slow down. The water began creeping up the beach, inch by painful inch, reaching for the whale's tail first. When the first wave touched her fluke, she moved it slightly, a small flex that sent a surge of hope through everyone watching. She was still strong enough to move. That was something. Sarah coordinated everything with the precision of a military operation. She had dealt with strandings before, and she knew the most dangerous moment would be when we tried to move the whale. Any sudden shift could cause injury, could break the fragile thread keeping her alive. "We need to be slow and steady," she called out. "When the water's deep enough, the boats will create a channel. We guide her, we don't push her. Her own buoyancy will do most of the work if we're patient." The water rose. It reached her midsection, then her pectoral fin, and finally began to lift her massive body ever so slightly. That's when things got tricky. Whales can't breathe underwater, but they also can't support their own weight on land. We were in this terrible middle ground where she was partially floating but still grounded, where one wrong move could roll her and potentially drown her or cause her to panic and injure herself further. Miguel and Tony were in the water now, along with a dozen other experienced swimmers and divers. They positioned themselves along her body, hands gently touching her, feeling for any signs of distress. I waded in too, the cold Pacific water soaking through my boots and pants, until I was standing where I could touch her head. Up close, her skin was like nothing I'd ever felt. Smooth, yet textured, warm despite the cold water, alive in a way that made my hand tingle where it pressed against her. The boats moved into position, their engines rumbling low, creating a corridor of vessels pointing toward deeper water. The plan was to use sound and gentle movement to encourage her to swim outward once she was fully buoyant. Humpback whales are intelligent. They understand spatial relationships and direction. If we could just get her oriented right, her own instincts might kick in, but that was a big if. Disorientation is one of the main reasons whales beach themselves in the first place. At 12:17 p.m., she became fully buoyant. I felt it happen the moment her weight lifted off the sand. Entirely, when the ocean reclaimed her mass, there was this collective held breath from everyone in the water and on the beach. This was it. Either she would swim toward freedom, or she would struggle, panic, and we'd lose her. Sarah gave a hand signal, and the boats began moving slowly backward, engines barely engaged, creating a path outlined by hulls and propeller wash. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. The whale floated, her body rising and falling with the waves, but she didn't swim. She didn't move forward or backward. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it over the sound of the ocean. "Come on," I thought, pushing the words at her with every ounce of mental energy I had. "Remember how to swim. Remember the ocean. Remember yourself." Then her tail moved, not a small flex this time, but a powerful downward stroke that pushed water and created thrust. She moved forward 3 feet, then stopped again. Another tail stroke, stronger this time. She was swimming. The cheer that went up from the beach was deafening. But we in the water stayed focused, staying with her, guiding her with gentle touches and the careful positioning of our bodies. The boats moved backward in perfect coordination, maintaining the channel. But then, disaster. About 50 yards from shore, she suddenly turned sideways, disoriented, her massive body starting to drift parallel to the beach instead of out to sea. "No, no, no!" Sarah screamed from the shore. If she beached herself again now, after all this, we wouldn't have another chance. The tide was at its peak. This was it. Miguel dove under, trying to guide her snout back toward open water. Tony positioned himself at her tail, creating gentle pressure, and I swam directly in front of her, treading water, my hand on her rostrum, looking into that eye one more time. "Not this way," I said firmly. "Out there, the deep water, your home." For 3 heartbeats, nothing. Then slowly, she adjusted. Her body straightened, pointing toward the open ocean. With a surge of power that took my breath away, she dove. Her massive pectoral fins extended like wings. Her tail rose magnificently out of the water one final time, black and white pattern clear against the grey sky, and she plunged into the depths. Gone. We floated there, exhausted and soaked, staring at the empty water where she'd vanished. The near disaster had drained us, but it had also proven something crucial. She'd listened. In that moment when she started to turn, the wrong way, she'd heard us, felt us, and chosen to trust. That thought would haunt me for 2 years. Did she remember? Could she possibly remember? The week after the rescue, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that moment when she turned parallel to the beach, saw how close we'd come to losing her after everything. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, replaying those 3 seconds when her fate hung in balance. "You need to let it go," Elena said on the 5th night of my restlessness. "You saved her. That's what matters." But had we? Or had we just delayed the inevitable by a few hours? "I keep thinking about internal damage," I told Miguel during our morning coffee ritual on the boat. What if her organs were crushed? What if she made it a mile out and then just sank? Miguel sipped his coffee, his weathered face thoughtful. "You'll drive yourself crazy with what ifs, hermano. We did what we could. The rest is up to her and the ocean." He was right, but knowing that didn't stop the wondering. 2 weeks after the rescue, I was running nets about 15 miles offshore when I saw a blow in the distance. My heart jumped. Every whale sighting did that now, sent adrenaline spiking through my system, made me grab the binoculars with shaking hands. This one was a humpback, solitary, moving north. Was it her? The distance was too great to tell. The whale breached once, a spectacular launch that sent spray glittering in the afternoon sun, then disappeared. I stood at the rail for 20 minutes after, just staring, hoping for another glimpse. Nothing. "You see that?" Devon asked, coming up beside me. The kid had changed since the rescue. He'd always been a good worker, but now he had this intensity, this focus. "I think it might have been her." I shook my head. No way to know. Could have been any humpback. But Devon pulled out his phone, showing me articles he'd bookmarked. "Says here they have incredible memories, and they're highly social. They recognize other whales, remember locations, return to the same feeding grounds year after year. If they can remember all that..." He trailed off, but I heard what he didn't say. If they can remember all that, why not us? 3 months passed. Winter storms battered the coast, keeping us in harbor more than out. I'd spend those days at the Marine Center with Sarah, learning about whale identification, studying the photo database of fluke patterns. "I got the photos from that day analyzed," Sarah told me in January. "Her fluke pattern is in the system now. If anyone spots her and gets a good tail photo, we'll know." The odds were astronomical. 1 whale in an ocean that covers 63 million square miles. But it was something. Then it happened. March 15th, 4:32 p.m. I was checking traps in our usual zone when I saw her. I knew immediately, the size, the way she moved, something indefinable but certain. A humpback surfaced about 100 yards from our boat, her distinctive pectoral fin breaking the water. My breath caught. "Tony! Miguel! Camera! Now!" They scrambled, confused by my urgency. The whale breached, and I saw it. The white pattern on her fluke as she dove. "It's her! That's her! I know it!" We repositioned the boat, moving closer, careful not to spook her. She surfaced again, and this time she seemed to look directly at our vessel. My hands trembled as I raised the camera, zooming in on her tail as she dove. Click, 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 3 perfect shots. The moment felt sacred, like a reunion, like confirmation of something I'd been desperate to believe. She'd survived. 3 months and hundreds of miles later, she was here. Alive, strong, swimming in the waters we shared. But then Tony checked the photos on the camera's display, and his face fell. "Marcus, the pattern doesn't match." He showed me the screen, and my heart sank. The fluke was similar, same general shape, same coloring, but the specific scars and markings were different. It wasn't her, it was just another whale, one of thousands of humpbacks that travel these waters. I'd been so sure, so absolutely certain. The disappointment hit like a physical blow. "It's okay, man," Miguel said quietly, gripping my shoulder. "You wanted it to be her. We all did." That night at home, Elena found me on our deck, staring out at the dark ocean. She didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me. Finally, "You're grieving." I nodded. I thought she made it. For 3 hours today, I was sure she'd survived, and it felt like we'd accomplished something impossible. Now I don't know. She could be dead. Probably is. Most beached whales don't survive, even with help. Elena took my hand. Or she's out there swimming free, and you just haven't seen her yet. Both are possible. You have to hold on to that. The false sighting changed something in me. I stopped obsessively checking every whale. I stopped spending my off days at the Marine Center. Life returned to its normal rhythm. Fishing, family, the endless cycle of seasons on the Pacific. Spring turned to summer, summer to fall. Devon moved onto a bigger boat, chasing better pay. Tony's daughter got married. Miguel became a grandfather. The world kept spinning. But I never forgot. October 14th, 1 year after the rescue, I took the boat to the exact spot where we'd returned her to the sea. Just me, alone on the water at dawn. I didn't see any whales, didn't really expect to, but I said a quiet thank you to the ocean, to whatever forces had let me be part of that day, to the whale herself, wherever she was. Dead or alive, she taught me something about the sacred responsibility we have to other living beings. That mattered, even if I never saw her again. Year 2 approached. Life went on. I'd mostly stopped thinking about her on a daily basis. The memory had settled into that comfortable place where significant experiences live. Present but not painful, meaningful but not consuming. And then October 14th came around again, 2 years to the day. And everything I thought I knew about whales, about memory, about the invisible connections between species, got completely shattered by what happened that afternoon at 2:47 p.m. It was 2:47 p.m. on October 14th when I first noticed them. Miguel had just hauled in a net, and we were sorting through the catch when Devon, who'd come back to work with us for the day, nostalgic for the old crew, suddenly grabbed my shoulder, pointing southwest. "Marcus, look at that breach!" His voice had that excited quality that still showed his youth, the awe that older fishermen sometimes lose after seeing thousands of whales over decades. But I looked, and my breath caught. 2 humpback whales were breaching about 300 yards from our boat, not just surfacing for air, but actually launching themselves partially out of the water in that spectacular display that makes tourists scream and cameras click. One was significantly larger than the other, an adult and a juvenile, almost certainly a mother and calf. They breached in sequence, the smaller one seeming to mimic the larger one's movements. It was beautiful, but it was also unusual. Whales breach for various reasons: communication, play, parasite removal, but this felt different. This felt intentional. Tony was already grabbing his phone to take video. We all stood at the rail, watching these two magnificent creatures play in the water. And then they started moving. Not away from us, as whales usually do when they notice boats, but toward us. Deliberately, steadily, they swam in our direction. "That's weird," Miguel muttered. "They're coming right at us." He was right. In all my years on the water, I'd seen whales approach boats occasionally, mostly young ones who were curious, but this felt different. This had purpose. They reached our boat and stopped about 50 feet away. The larger whale, the mother I was certain now, surfaced fully, her massive head breaking the water, her eye rotating to look directly at us. And in that moment, seeing that eye, a jolt of electricity shot through my body. I knew that eye. I knew that whale. "It's her," I whispered, then louder, my voice breaking with emotion. "It's her, that's the whale, that's the one we saved." My crew looked at me like I'd lost my mind, and maybe I had a little. But I was certain. Some things you just know in your bones. "Marcus, you can't possibly—" Tony started, but I cut him off. "Get photos of her tail when she dives. Clear photos. We need to verify." But even as I said it, I didn't need verification. That eye watching me, that specific way she held position in the water, the deliberate way she'd approached, I knew. She remembered. 2 years and thousands of miles of ocean later, she remembered. And she'd come back. On the exact anniversary of the day we saved her life. The calf surfaced beside its mother, smaller but already showing the distinctive long pectoral fins of a humpback, maybe 15 feet long, born within the last year. The mother made a sound, a low vocalization that we could hear even through the boat's hull, that characteristic whale song that travels for miles underwater. The calf responded with its own higher-pitched call. They were communicating, and I had the strangest sensation that they were talking about us, about our boat, about this moment. "She's introducing us," Devon breathed. "She's telling her baby about us." Then the mother did something I've never seen before and haven't seen since. She rolled slightly to her side, bringing her pectoral fin out of the water, and extended it toward our boat. Not aggressively, not in warning, but in what I can only describe as a gesture, an offering, an acknowledgement. My hands were shaking as I moved to the side of the boat closest to her. "What are you doing?" Miguel hissed. But I ignored him. I leaned over the rail, reached out my arm as far as I could, and touched the tip of her pectoral fin. The skin was exactly as I remembered. Smooth, warm, alive. The fin was about 15 feet long, massive and powerful enough to break bones if she wanted, but she held it perfectly still, letting me touch her. Tears were streaming down my face, and I didn't care who saw. "You made it," I said out loud. "You survived. You had a baby." The whale watched me with that knowing eye, and I swear to you she understood every word. Not the language, but the emotion behind it. The joy and relief and wonder. If this story has touched your heart the way that moment touched mine, I'd be deeply honored if you'd take a second to like this video. It helps others discover these stories about the profound connections we share with the natural world. She held that position for maybe 30 seconds, letting me touch her, creating a connection that bridged 2 years and 2 completely different worlds. Then slowly, gently, she lowered her fin back into the water. The calf moved closer, curious about this strange encounter, and the mother positioned herself between us and her baby, protective, but allowing the calf to observe, to learn. This was a teaching moment, I realized. She was showing her calf that not all boats were dangerous, that some humans were friends. They stayed with us for almost an hour. They swam circles around our boat, breached twice more, dove and surfaced in perfect synchronization. The calf came close enough that I could have touched it too, always with the mother watching carefully. We took dozens of photos and videos, documenting everything. At one point, both whales surfaced on either side of our boat simultaneously, creating a moment of surreal beauty where we were surrounded by these magnificent creatures who had chosen to spend this time with us. And then, as deliberately as they'd arrived, they began to leave. The mother surfaced one last time right next to the boat, her eye finding mine again. This was goodbye, I understood. Not forever maybe, but for now. She was showing me her calf, sharing her success, her survival, her gratitude. She was closing a circle that had opened on a beach 2 years ago. I pressed my hand to my heart and then extended it toward her, hoping she'd understand the gesture. Her tail rose high out of the water in that distinctive humpback fluke-up dive, the black and white pattern clearly visible. The pattern I'd soon verify matched the photos from the rescue day exactly. And then she was gone, her calf following close behind, 2 whales disappearing into the vast Pacific. The silence on our boat after they left was profound. 4 grown men standing at the rail, staring at empty ocean, trying to process what we'd just witnessed. Devon broke it first, his voice cracking with emotion. Did that really just happen? Did she really come back? Miguel was scrolling through the photos on his phone, his hands still shaking. I got it all. I got everything. Marcus, we have proof. We can verify this. Tony was just crying, not even trying to hide it. Tears running down his weathered face into his grey beard. I called Sarah from the boat. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. Sarah, she came back. The whale from 2 years ago, she came back with her calf. She brought her baby to see us. There was a long pause on the line, and I thought maybe the connection had dropped. Then Sarah's voice, tight with controlled emotion. Marcus, send me every photo you took. Every single one. If the fluke pattern matches, if this is a real... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. We both knew what it would mean. The verification took 3 days. Sarah compared our new photos with the ones from the rescue day, matching every detail of the tail fluke pattern, each white marking, each scar, each unique characteristic. She consulted with marine biologists from 3 different universities. They all confirmed the same conclusion. It was the same whale. Beyond reasonable doubt, the humpback whale we'd saved on October 14th 2 years ago had returned on the exact anniversary date with her calf. One biologist called it the most documented case of long-term gratitude behavior in a cetacean we've ever recorded. The story exploded. Not just local news this time, but national, then international. Scientists were fascinated because while whales are known to have excellent memories, documented cases of whales deliberately seeking out specific humans who helped them are extremely rare. Marine biologists wanted to study the behavior, understand the implications. Film crews came to our small fishing harbor. My phone rang constantly with interview requests. Devon became a minor celebrity among marine biology students, one of them even offering to help fund his college education if he wanted to study marine science. But for me, the attention felt like noise around the edges of something sacred. What mattered wasn't the proof or the scientific verification or the news coverage. What mattered was the moment, the eye contact, the understanding that passed between a human and a whale across the invisible boundary that usually separates our species. She had remembered. She had returned. She had brought her most precious gift, her offspring, to share with the humans who'd given her a second chance at life. Elena watched me struggle with the publicity. You want to keep it private. she observed one evening. "You want it to belong just to you and that whale." She was right, as usual. Having thousands of people comment on the videos, having scientists analyze every frame, having reporters ask me to describe my feelings over and over, it felt like they were handling something precious with dirty hands. But Elena also pointed out something important. Stories like this change how people see whales, see the ocean. Maybe her gift wasn't just for you. Maybe she wanted humans to remember that we're all connected. That perspective shifted something for me. I started accepting more interviews, but I steered every conversation toward conservation. I talked about how commercial fishing practices need to evolve to protect whales. I discussed ocean pollution, shipping lane conflicts, the importance of marine sanctuaries. If this whale's return was going to be public, then I'd use that attention to advocate for her kind, for all marine life. It's what she deserved. It's the only way I could think to honor what she'd given us. Miguel, Tony, Devon and I still fish those same waters. We still run our nets and check our traps and do the hard work of making a living from the sea. But now, other fishermen approach us with their own stories. A dolphin they helped free from a net, a seal pup they'd rescued, moments of connection with marine life they'd never shared before. Our story had given them permission to acknowledge that these aren't just resources we harvest. They're beings we share the planet with. The culture of our fishing community started to shift, slowly but perceptibly. We see humpback whales regularly in our waters, especially during migration seasons. Each time, I wonder if it's her. Sometimes I think I recognize her in the way a particular whale breaches, or in the pattern of white on a pectoral fin glimpsed briefly. But I've never been certain, never had another encounter like that October afternoon. And that's okay. Some moments aren't meant to be repeated. They're meant to be transformative, to split your life into before and after, to prove that the world contains more mystery and connection than we usually allow ourselves to believe. The calf would be 4 years old now, nearly full grown, likely independent from its mother or close to it. I wonder sometimes if that young whale remembers our boat, remembers the strange two-legged creatures that its mother deliberately sought out and introduced it to. I wonder if the story of the rescue is part of the whale's inherited knowledge, passed down through whatever means humpback whales use to share their history with the next generation. Do whales have stories? Do they have oral traditions? Do they sing songs about the day they were saved by humans on a beach? Sarah told me something recently that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said that in whale pods, mothers often teach their calves which areas are safe and which humans can be trusted. "You didn't just save one whale that day," she said. "You potentially changed that entire lineage's relationship with humans. That calf will remember your boat, and if it has calves of its own someday, it might pass that knowledge down. You created a ripple that could last generations." The weight of that responsibility, the beauty of it, still takes my breath away. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, thank you. If this story moved you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to this channel and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that compassion matters, that our actions ripple outward in ways we can't always see. And please drop a comment below telling me about any moments you've experienced where the natural world reached back and touched you. I read every single one, and your stories matter. The question I get asked most often is, do you think she'll come back again? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe that October afternoon was a one-time gift, a single moment of gratitude expressed and received. Maybe she's out there right now, swimming the vast Pacific, teaching her grown calf how to hunt and migrate, living the life we fought to give her back on that desperate morning 2 years before she returned. And that's enough. More than enough. What I do know is that she changed me permanently. I look at the ocean differently now, with more reverence, more awareness of the intelligence moving beneath the surface. Every wave could be carrying a whale's song. Every splash could be a tail salute from a creature that remembers the day humans chose kindness over convenience. The ocean isn't just our workplace or our resource or our backdrop. It's home to minds and hearts and memories we're only beginning to comprehend. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, those minds reach out and touch ours, creating bridges between worlds that remind us we're all part of the same living planet. Mark us out on the Pacific, still watching the water, still hoping, still grateful for the day. A whale taught me that love and memory aren't human inventions. They're universal languages spoken by beings throughout the natural world. And if you take one thing from this story, let it be this: when you have the chance to help, when you see a creature in need, don't calculate the odds or measure the cost. Just help, because you never know what ripples that moment of compassion might create, what connections it might forge, or what gifts might someday return to you on the tide of an ocean that remembers everything.